神
the
以
way
前我
that
哋教導我哋去解嘅時間，去就係佢嘅時間。
some differently than others.
佢同每一個人講嘅嘢。
But he really means be still and know that I am God.
我哋真係要靜默等待，知道佢係神。
You know, that's in the Psalms, Psalm 46,
係啊，詩篇
verse 10.
46。
And about 2 weeks ago, we started talking about that.
2個星期前我哋已經開始講緊呢樣嘢。
Now, what was happening there is everyone was all acting upset. They were doing all kinds of things. And the Lord said, you don't have to go there. And the Lord said, be still and know that I am God. Stop doing all these things and just get with me.
詩篇43就神同佢啲子民講：你做咁多都冇用，你真係要等待。
And, these were times that were written about with actual physical war. And the Lord was like leading spears into plowshares and that kind of thing.
呢個係一個療療嘅時間，呢個經文，呢個詩篇。
And so when we talked about it 2 weeks ago,
我哋2個星期就講緊呢個題目嗰陣時，
we don't have those kinds of things going on right now.
我哋喺呢個平靜嘅時代，你睇呢個詩篇。
But we do have those kind of things going on with everyone wanting our emotions to be going their direction.
不過我哋咧每日喺個平靜嘅生命中咧，我哋可能有個混亂嘅心態。
And so we have to choose if we want to go the direction someone wants us to go.
我哋真係要諗清楚，我哋選擇一個人帶領我哋行嘅路，抑或。
And a lot of times we have expressions that we've learned in growing up.
有陣時我哋細個嗰陣時已經學到好多啲唔同嘅教導。
And some of the expressions are not very nice.
有嗰啲教導有可能係我哋嘅即係有好多教導唔係幾好。
So if you would turn in your Bibles to James, it's
然後喺雅各書
in the New Testament.
喺新約
It's toward the back a little
新約
bit.
後邊3章7至8 James 3:7-8 chapter 3.
Yes, I'm sorry, James chapter 3, 7 and 8, verses 7.
雅各第3章7至8。
It's interesting couple of verses.
呢兩句金句係有啲特別。
But it's something that we all struggle with.
可能我哋好多都係喺呢度喺度掙扎緊。
Is everybody there?
大家去到係俾少少時間你去到雅各書第3章第7同埋第8。
Yeah, would you read the
飛禽、昆蟲、水族本來都可以制服，也已經被人制服了，唯獨舌頭沒有人能制服，是不自識的惡物，滿了害死人的毒氣。
Thank you. Now, the English that I have is from the New International Version, and it says all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed by mankind, and they have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil full of deadly poison. We have learned to sometimes speak our mind in efforts to tell people no. We've come up with many creative ways.
其實我哋已經習慣咗咧諗到乜講乜有可能咧就係維護自己唔想做人哋勸我哋做嘅嘢。
And unfortunately, most of them are negative.
好多時呢啲都係好負面嘅事件。
Now, it's important to note that we can have what we say.
好清晰要知道咧，我哋可以得到我哋自己講嘅嘢。
So if we're speaking negative,
如果我哋好負面咧，
we're creating for our lives negative situations.
我哋喺我哋生命中咧就創造一個負面嘅環境、負面嘅世界俾我哋知。
And that is shown in Mark 11:23 and 24.
然後我哋可以喺馬可福音11至23、24咧，可以睇到呢件事。
You can read that on your own.
呢個Pastor Richard 想你自己睇馬可福音11章23、24，可以自己翻去睇。
But believe me, it's in there. You can have what you say. It doesn't say it that way, but that's what it says.
不過你如果第一眼睇咧睇唔到係呢個意思，不過講真，你真係得到你自己講嘅嘢嘅。
We talked about this previously in other services.
然後我之前喺早幾個星期，我哋已經講過呢樣嘢。
But we never made the connection with the writing in James.
不過我哋冇連接到雅各書第3章係馬可。
In Mark 11:23 and 24, it's basically indicating that you can have what you say, but you have to do it in certain ways, and certain conditions apply.
喺馬可書咧就係你可以得到你口中説嘅話語，不過係有啲限制，有啲條件嘅你要攞到先。
Now, society teaches us how not to have what we say.
我哋社會咧就講真都限制我哋口講嘅嘢，口要求嘅嘢。
We're in Jolie. We're in James, chapter 3, 7, and 8. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever experienced moving on from a group of friends.
我唔知你經歷過咧脫離離開一班朋友嘅經驗。
And you decided that you no longer are going to be a friend in this group or with this person.
你已經決定咗我唔會同呢班人做朋友。
And they do everything they can to bring you back and keep you as a friend.
不過嗰班人係千方百計唔俾你走，仍然當你係朋友。
They want you to be part of their group.
佢想你係同佢哋一齊係一班人。
So depending on how it was in that group for you, it could be painful, emotionally.
你有可能已經喺呢班人之中受到啲傷害，唔開心。
Or it could be just, hey, I'm not the same person. I'm growing and I need new friends.
有可能你係已經變咗第二個人喺呢班人之中，你已經成熟到進到第二個地步啦。
And then they may, when they know they're losing you, they may ridicule you.
有可能佢呢班朋友咧知道你開始脱離咧，佢有可能辱罵你、嘲笑你。
And it's their last effort to try to keep you where they're at.
咁係有可能佢最後一個臨走嘅方法喺度限制你唔俾你走。
And you know, we're an emotional people. We're emotional people. We were made that way. We tend sometimes to not think with our mind, but lead with our emotions in these kind of situations.
好多時咧，我哋咧就俾我哋啲感性行先，唔會用我哋啲理性帶領。因為我哋係咁樣創造出嚟。
And so we may say something like, well, you know, maybe I can, we can remain, good friends. I just won't be around as often.
有可能你對呢班朋友講我哋仍然係朋友，不過我有可能咧唔會咁多見你哋。
And you don't even think what they just did to get you to say that, which was something very negative. They ridiculed you.
不過有可能佢哋已經辱罵過你、嘲笑過你，然後你已經忘記咗佢哋咁樣對你。
They're saying things like, "Oh, you think you're too good for us."
有可能佢會同你講，哇！你而家威啦，你不配同我哋一齊啦。
And things of that
我哋
nature.
不配同你一齊。
And it's like, no, that's not it. You really aren't thinking that. You're not moving from them because of that. You just need to move on.
有可能你唔係叻過佢哋，一係超越咗佢哋，你只要向前行，要脱離，要增長。
And so what the whole point is of that little illustration is that we come in contact with people who speak negatively all the time.
我頭先個故事個核心嗰點咧，你要明白咧，就係我哋一入到眼接觸到好多人嘅口中係負面嘅人。
And they know how to put a positive spin on their negative attitude.
不過佢哋咧就婉轉啲，轉下，佢個負面嘅態度咧，揾一個所謂正面嘅方法嚟蓋咗佢嘅負面嘅態度。
And a lot of times, you'll have people that go so far, they're actually so alone inside themselves, or they've been hurt, or they have some sort of injuries from the past that they will act out negatively to get you to stay.
有可能你接觸嗰啲咧，佢哋沮喪到，佢哋受傷害到，佢哋已經入邊咧已經憂鬱到咧一點咧，佢哋差唔多乜嘢都會同你講，令到你唔好離開佢哋。
And it's really quite a scene, and it can be quite disturbing.
如果你唔慣咧，有可能呢樣嘢咧會對你你又驚愕，即係對你會唔習慣見咁樣嘅人。
You know, even though we're exposed daily to these negative attitudes and negative speech,
因為我哋日都見到呢啲負面嘅人、負面嘅話語。
it's our responsibility not to conform to that.
不過我哋要好清晰，我哋唔可以跟隨佢一樣。
It's our responsibility to help those people and many others along life's path for us in demonstrating and showing forth the love of God.
我哋要好清晰咧，我哋咧係唔可以同佢一樣負面，我哋要擺出一個好正面嘅，擺出神嘅光、神嘅愛喺佢哋之中。
And God never says he can't do anything.
神咧冇話佢做唔到嘢，
But we say, I can't do that. It's always in that speech.
不過我哋一日到晚聽到咧，我做唔到呢樣，我做唔到嗰樣。
And it's like, why can't you do that?
然後你要問下點解你做唔到？
And it's you can do whatever you can conceive of or think of.
講真，你諗到講到，你係有呢個能力去做呢件事嘅。
It's not if you. This is the point of not being afraid of man.
呢個係你唔好驚第啲人，
But again, wanting to have your feeling of belongingness there in association with other people.
不過你去合群呢個不斷喺度人就不斷要合群。
That tends to cause us to conform to the will of others.
然後我哋嘅合群嘅心態咧，令到我哋咧屈服係俾第二啲人嘅意。
And usually the will of others is not God's will for us.
通常第啲人嘅意唔係神嘅意。
Because the will of others sometimes is designed to hold you in one place because they like you in that place.
好多時咧，第啲人嘅意咧係喺度克制你、控制你，令到你唔可擺你喺一個佢哋舒服你喺嗰個地位。
It would disrupt the system of how things work in that relationship or that group if you were to leave.
依個咧，如果你依個係一個方法咧，限制你，等你咧，如果你唔係咁樣，你會搗亂佢哋個系統，佢哋依班人嘅系統，你會令到有種搗亂喺入邊。
I don't know if you can remember when you were in school in science class, they had you look in a microscope.
我唔知你記唔記得你嗰陣時咧上科學堂，佢俾個顯微鏡你睇嗰陣時，第一次。
They had you looking at things that were constantly moving, moving around, moving in and out, and so forth. But they were little tiny microorganisms that you couldn't see without the magnification of a microscope.
咁啊，你記唔記得你上擺科嗰陣時第一次睇嘅顯微鏡入邊咧有好多微生物喺度上喐落走嚟走去嗰陣時。
And most of those things you see moving around don't have a very long lifespan.
好多時喺顯微鏡入邊嗰啲微生物咧，佢活得好短一個時間。
But they're essential to the building blocks of what makes us who we are.
然後咧，依啲微生物咧，係生命中依棵大樹咧，佢係差唔多好基本一種生命。
See, we are living organisms ourselves. We have a bunch of these living things. We're living. This is life. It hurts when I poke my hand in the wrong place.
我哋係生一活嘅一種嘢，我哋係有生命嘅。
And so, things, people live. They're born. They live. They die. In their flesh dies.
我哋會生老病死嘅，我哋個肉體會有人滅亡嘅。
If you ever spend time with older people,
如果你花個時間同老人家一齊咧，
you will hear things from time to time, such as, "If it weren't for this body, I could live forever."
你會聽到啲老人家咧，如果唔係我依個身體，我真係可以永生。如果唔係依個腐爛嘅身體。
Because the essence, the real you is spirit. It's your spirit in a body.
不過真正嘅你咧係一個靈，不過我哋活着喺一個肉體嘅生命嘅肉體 之類。
And so many older people know this. They feel they don't inside. The way they explain it is inside they don't feel old. It's their body telling them they're old.
好多老人家咧會話俾你聽，啊，佢哋唔覺得老，佢入邊唔老，不過佢個身體不斷話俾佢聽老。
And that's the benefit of exercise.
所以我哋要核心要運動，
And taking care of yourself and eating right and all those
要
things.
食得啱，運動。
That when we're in shape, when we're flexible, when our mothers and so forth have seen, and our wives and all have seen that we're taken care of, that sometimes we don't carry that on when we're older.
我哋要好好對我哋嘅身體，等我面對年老嗰陣時咧係呢個。
Now, earlier this week,
呢個星期早啲咧。
Earlier this week, I've developed a little problem in my body. I can't cross my right leg over my left knee anymore.
我開始有個問題咧，就係我左腿唔可以喺我右腿個左邊。
That never used to be a big deal.
我本來冇問題㗎，我交叉隻
You
腳
can't
咁
do
樣，
that. You know, everybody can do that.
人人都可以做到。我唔知點解上星期我開始就做唔到咯。
Well, see, I had a couple of back injuries when I was younger.
不過咧講真咧，我細個嗰陣時咧，我個小背嗰度係受過傷。
And also when for a while when I got out of secondary school,
我喺中學嗰陣時咧，
I would still have the discipline of exercising and so forth and doing what I knew I should do.
我喺中學嗰陣時咧，我離開中學嗰陣時咧，我仍然知道咧對身體好要運動。
When I got out, in the U.S. we live on our own a lot after a certain age.
我哋喺美國咧，我哋好早咧就係離開屋企咧，就自己一個人住嘅。
And it's different for everyone. But the point is, if you don't maintain the disciplines that were part of your day and overseen by teachers and parents and things like that, then you don't realize it right away, but you start making yourself old in your body.
你咧本來喺學校有種紀律咧，如果你咧唔保持呢個紀律咧，你一離開你嘅屋企個紀律，你嘅學校嘅紀律，你自己住咧，你唔對自己嘅身體唔好咧，你好快老。
So anyway, I haven't exercised really in a regular way for many years.
講真，同你分享咧，我好多年都未運動過。
I'm an example of what I'm speaking.
我就係真係知道你唔運動你可以睇得出有咩事發生。
So I decided that one day last week,
上
or
星期咧，
actually this week,
previous
week, whatever, Sunday is considered the start of the new week in my culture. And so it would have been last week, probably around, maybe it was Tuesday or something.
大約星期二到啦。
I decided that I need to do something about this problem that I'm having with this leg. I can't
我哋決
seem
定
to
咗
do it anymore. It's like
Oh,
my
you-
tendons
you-
got smaller or something.
咁簡單嘅問題，因為交叉腳我都做唔到，我決定咗我要做啲嘢解決。
Well, my mother is still alive,
我媽仍然在生。
and so I'm thinking about this too.
我諗緊。
She's become shorter over time.
然後咧，我媽年紀好大，不過佢開始收縮啦。
Now, my mother's in her 80s,
我媽骨骼又開始矮咗啲啦，佢80幾歲啦。
and she was short to begin with. She was only 5'3", 5'3"
佢
inches.
後生嗰陣時都唔係高，即係5尺3喺美國係算矮嘅啦。
Remember, in America, we still use feet and inches.
記得我哋美國係尺。
Okay, so she was kind of a short lady anyway,
咁佢本來都係識啲一個女士啊，
but now she's 4 foot something.
而家佢得翻4
She's
尺
lost
幾
like 4 inches
最少矮咗4寸。
over time, and it's because she's not stretching out her muscles and tendons and things
因
like
為
that.
佢冇一種運動嘅習慣，
And her body is not toned anymore.
然後佢身體好
So
弱
it's-
下啦，
Everything's more loosened up, and so there's more aches and pains.
佢好多肌肉骨都疏縮，即係冇咁好啦，然後好多小嘅痛啦，即係骨痛。
You know, if she was in top physical condition at 80, I would very much be surprised.
不過好多人如果去到80歲都仍然係好 fit 嘅咧，佢都好難見嘅。
But the thing about her getting shorter kind of caused me to think about my situation.
不過佢到80歲矮咧，就我特別有種關心呢樣嘢。
Now, I have to say this to y'all.
我要同你
You know how when you get this good feeling when you stretch your muscles, when you're kind of in bed or waking up
即
or
係起身嗰
whatever?
陣時，伸下嗰陣時咧，你有冇種好嘅感覺咧？好舒服啲嘅感覺。
That's exactly the feeling you get when you start getting shorter. It really is. You start feeling that you're going to stretch more often, you feel good when you do, but it's actually what's happening is your muscles and tendons are stretching, but they're not really stretching, they're getting shorter.
有陣時你伸嗰種感覺咧，就講真咧，就係你收縮矮啲個感覺係一樣嘅。
You just feel like you're stretching.
你感覺就講真，你喺度伸緊抹緊筋啊，不過講真你係收縮緊㗎。
Anyway, I kind of cracked myself up. In other words, I made myself laugh because of what I said.
然後
And I said to myself,
有
I
少
actually
少我
said
自己覺得
to,
滑稽。
I actually said to Pastor Nancy, I said, we don't call each other pastor or anything at home.
我哋唔會叫Nancy Pastor 嘅，因為我哋自己就係叫 Nancy 㗎啦喺屋
All
企。
right. And so I said to her, you know, I went out in the front room. It's only a small place, you know. And so I was starting to,
我哋喺度聽嗰
stretch,
度咧，
you
喺
know.
度伸啊，喺度抹下筋啊。
And I started hearing, like, I don't know what it was, but there was popping and cracking.
然後我喺度伸下抹下筋啊，然後我可以聽到咧滴啪啪嗰啲嘢喺度好開始轉啊爛啊嗰啲聲音都出嚟啦。
And, you know, I didn't feel any pain right then or anything, but
我嗰點我感覺唔到有咩痛，感覺唔到。
I said, you know, I'm going to do some deep knee bends, you know,
Well, I'm
this
just
thing,
some,
all the way down and up, you know.
踎下伸下咁樣。
And I really I did a very short exercise thing. I didn't, from what I know, I did not overdo it
其
at
實
all.
我呢個好短嘅，我唔係做得好激烈啊，唔係做得好長嘅時間。
It was very light. It was just a
即
little
係
bit
輕
of,
微嘅運動，
you know.
一喐下咁樣伸下咁樣。
but guess what? I haven't done it in 20 years.
不過估下咩啊？你可以諗到我20年都未做過。
You know, a real, you know, regular exercise. So my back hurt. Later.
然後之後咧，因為我20年都咁簡單嘅運動我都未做伸筋，我小背好痛。
And my back hurt in that very place where it was injured because that's considered the weak spot in my body.
然後啱我係少年嗰陣時受傷個小背嗰個地方最痛。
And so for 2 nights I slept on the sofa
然後2晚咧我就喺 sofa 瞓啦。
because the bed, laying flat on the bed, hurt my back so bad it was making me to where I couldn't even hardly move. To get up out of bed, to get over there to do it.
然後我直情喺普通床瞓都唔得。
But I said, but before all that pain started, I told Nancy, I said, you know, I sound like a fossil.
Just say it. I sound like a fossil.
What? Tell me
should
what a
tell them to
fossil
cut
is.
the food. You should tell them to
Like
cut
peel.
them out like the food.
Yeah, like a fossil.
So everybody's gonna
Yeah,
be
like an
doing
old
What?
archaeological fossil.
Yeah,
I said I sound like I'm. All right, I'll just tell
好
it
似
to you in
你
English.
啲老骨頭咁樣。
I'll just tell it to you in English. You can't. Maybe it's not translatable. I said, I sound like a fossil,
我
And,
見到老骨頭咁樣。
and because when I was exercising and stuff, I was cracking and popping.
然後我因為咧我喐動咧，我少少啲運動咧，我全部噼里啪啦㗎咁樣。
And then I said, well, what is? And then later on, after I said that, I thought for a minute. I said, what does a fossil sound like?
然後我諗下。
I've never heard of fossil.
老骨喺度喐嗰陣時係咩聲音咧？
Now, I'm not talking about fossil the watch. I'm
我
talking
係講緊
about
個標準大字。
archaeological fossils.
我講緊啲粉紅骨嗰啲地下啲掘出嚟嗰啲。
Which it was my way of saying, hey, my body's getting old and I need to take care of it.
然後咧係我個身體同我講咧，我話俾我聽，我開始驗到。
So, how many people actually believe that they actually say something before they do it?
有幾多人？你哋有幾多人相信你會講一啲嘢然後做，然後即刻會做你講嗰樣嘢咧？
It's like, oh, I feel hungry. Maybe it's time for lunch.
好似你話我肚餓啊，有可能我而家要食晏啦。
Do you ever say things like that? They're just I mean, you don't even pay attention.
你有冇感覺你同自己講嘢，你都已經慣到一點，你都唔知道你自己喺度講緊嘢。
You know, I have to go to the toilet.
然後
You
好
know,
似你話
sometimes
自己同自己
You
講
know,
我
a
而
lot
家
of
喺
times
廁
you
所
don't
啦。
verbalize that, but you'll say, oh, I'll be back in a minute or something like that, and then you kind of go off and take care of business and come back.
你自己都唔知自己咧每日同自己講幾多嘢啊，去廁所啊，去呢度啊，去嗰度啊。
Well, and then sometimes you'll have what's called self-talk. You'll talk to yourself about things while you're doing other things. There'll be this kind of low-grade murmuring going on in your mind.
然後咧有時咧你自己同自己有啲咦咁樣嘅，自己同自己啲聲音咧不斷喺度環繞，你做緊第啲嘢都自己同自己喺度咦咁樣講。
So you could be playing a game on the computer,
你有玩緊機啦喺個你個手機。
or you could be working, or you could be doing a lot of things, and people call this multitasking. It's a form of multitasking.
咁啊，你不斷咧做一次過做好多樣嘢一齊啦。
Well, you could also be thinking about things of God in relationship to your life.
有可能你喺之中咧，你係諗緊
You
我
could
嘅神。
be actually talking back and forth with God while you're doing things.
有可能你喺呢啲時間咧，你會同神有種交通，有種交流。
When you talk back and forth with God, that's the P word. That's considered prayer. It's not necessarily that you have to get down by the bedside and prevail and go for 20 minutes to an hour or more.
如果你代替咗你同你自己講嘅以我啦，直接同我哋嘅神喺度溝通嗰陣時咧，呢啲係算係一種祈禱。你唔使跪低，你唔使大聲叫算祈禱，呢啲都係算祈禱。
Although there is purpose in that, and there's great value in that.
呢個好有一種意思嘅意義，一種祈禱嘅，你不斷喺度喺腦中唔出聲同神喺度溝通。
So, in another part of that chapter 3 in James chapter 3, it talks about, okay, if your tongue, if you can have if Mark 11:23 and 24 is true, that you can have what you say as long as you stand believing in prayer.
我翻返去雅各書第3章7同8咧。
Then it's important that our tongue, which is considered like a rudder on a boat or on a ship that steers the ship, it's important that, and that's in James 3, I think it's verse 5 or 6.
喺雅各書3章第7節咧，我哋嘅唔係第8節咧，我哋嘅舌頭咧即係好似一個船，一個舵唔係一個舵控制一個船咁樣。我哋舌頭係控制我哋嘅方向。
Then it's important that we condition ourselves, that we work on forming new habits in our speech.
我哋要警醒要操練我哋自己咧，控制我哋點樣講乜嘢。
Because it's the very thing, our speech is the very thing that designs our life. We design our own life by what we speak.